without having a very deep sense of purpose of who you are, it becomes very difficult for you to even navigate the corporate world to begin with. Most of the times when we talk of leadership in our cultural context in Africa, we think of certain gender or we think of certain people who we believe should be leaders. But then the thing is that anyone can be a leader as long as they develop the trait. And although in the African culture, sometimes women are not seen as leaders, if we really look back at our families, if we really look back at some of the matriarchs that we have, we would see that in some families, women are even the strongest people, and they're actually the people leading the family. When we go to places like the marketplaces, we have market queens who are actually driving commerce in Africa. We also have women who have taken over places like in agriculture, fishing. There are women who own boats, who own ships, and who are doing amazing things. But then when we come to the corporate world, most of the time we forget that these people are leaders in their own right. And many women tend to have imposter syndrome, or many women tend to think that they cannot be leaders because their idea of leaders or who they see as leaders do not reflect who they see in themselves. So when it comes to leadership, we always have to know that anyone can be a leader as long as they develop the right mindset, the right attitude, and the right skills that takes them into leadership. And today we'll be trying to look at how to recognize the leader in you and how to embrace leadership. Seeking mentors and role models. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, go with others. And in our leadership journey, we have to recognize that there are people who have been there before. There are people who have done it before, and there are people whose stories and mistakes that we can learn from. In my case, when I joined the insurance industry, I became CEO at a very young age. I was just 28, and prior to that, I hadn't even held any leadership position. I wasn't manager in my previous job. So that gave me a lot of pressure to perform, and I knew that I needed the wisdom and the guidance and the mentorship of others to be able to go far. So I actively sought role models. There were people on my board that I asked to mentor me because they had already led their leadership journeys. Some of them were on other boards, some of them were CEOs. So I sought their counsel and I told them to actively mentor me. There were other people in the insurance industry that I also got in touch with. Not all of them were CEOs, but then there were people who had technical knowledge and who could show me the way and show me the ropes very fast. And I also looked for other female role models because I knew that the journey that women go through in corporate is very different from what most men would go through. I actively looked for women who were doing well in the insurance field and I asked them to mentor me. By doing that, I was able to get a personal board of very influential and very experienced people who I could learn from. And through that, I was able to learn very fast on the job. They were able to open doors for me so that I could have more opportunities, and even more, they taught me what not to do so that I wouldn't make mistakes. And to date, I've been very grateful to all my mentors. I've been very grateful also to all my sponsors who actually opened certain doors for me that I didn't even know existed. So if you really want to take your leadership journey seriously, you have to look for people who have gone before you and learn from them. And that's one of the ways that you can embrace leadership. Build your confidence and assertiveness. In the African context, many of us grow up believing that we should not speak up, especially when adults are around. And many people take this into the corporate world where they are not able to assert themselves or speak about what they want or what the skills that they bring to the table because they feel like they've not been invited to the table yet and they don't have a say. I find that building your confidence comes over time. It's not something that happens naturally to most of us because culturally, we don't think that we should even be speaking up in public, or we don't think that we should take roles that makes us put ourselves out there. In my case, I was always someone who liked to speak up in public, but then because I got shut down so many times growing up, it became difficult for me over time because I began to think that I should always be in the background and not bring myself to the forefront because no one likes a nosy person or no one likes someone who knows it all. But coming into leadership, I realized that assertiveness and confidence is something that you build over time. You have to learn how to do the little things that help you to build your confidence. For instance, sometimes it's as simple as learning to say no. Sometimes it's as simple as learning to volunteer for things. Sometimes it could even be as simple as always saying yes to little tasks that involve you speaking, or saying yes to tasks that involve you leading, or saying yes to tasks that involve you taking yourself out of your comfort zone. And by doing that over time, it helps you build your confidence such that you realize that things that you would have taken forever to do takes a shorter time. For instance, assuming you're not very good at public speaking, you volunteer to give the vote of thanks at several events. Every single time you do just that 2 minutes or that 3 minutes of talking, it helps you to build your confidence, and it helps you to clarify your thoughts and become better at speaking in front of people. Over time, you can move from just giving the vote of thanks to maybe MCing. And over time, you can move to moderation, and then past a certain point, maybe in a few years, no one will even recognize that you were the person who couldn't even speak up in public, but because now you are taking up more outward roles and you're becoming more confident in speaking. Sometimes it might be as simple as just volunteering to write an article. It might be as simple as volunteering to mentor national service people or to mentor interns who come to the company. You might see it as something very little because it doesn't involve talking to people who are higher up. But then that little skill of leadership could be something that puts you at the forefront and helps you to get more confidence, so that next time it will not just be about volunteering for interns or leading interns, but it could be about leading other people in a bigger setting within the company. Embracing challenges and risks. In our corporate life, there are so many chances that sometimes we let pass us by because we think we are not ready, or we think that it's too big for us to do. In my case, the first time that I moderated a session was online, and it was something that I had to volunteer for, although I wasn't too comfortable with because I had never done it before. After doing it, I realized that I actually really enjoyed moderating panel sessions. The next time something came up, which was just a week later, I volunteered again. That then led to moderation sessions in person, and now I've actually moderated panel sessions across different countries in Africa. And it all started by saying yes to a simple request that I got from a friend. The thing is that you'll never quite be ready for the challenges that life throws your way. But sometimes saying yes to that simple thing is what might be the big break that you need in your career. It might not be coming to work diligently every day that's going to get you noticed, but it might be something as simple as volunteering to do something that's out of your comfort zone, that's outside your normal work schedule, that's going to put you in front of the people who matter and in front of people who can actually help you with your promotions, help you to become a leader. So before you say no to certain things, sometimes think of it. Is it really that scary? Is it really something that you can do? And one thing that I do for myself is I always ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? If you put that there, what's the worst that could happen? And if it happens, what am I going to do about it? Once you know what's the worst that could happen and what you can do about it, and if it's not that scary, you can just go for it, because why not? The experiences that women have in corporate is very different from what a man might experience in corporate. Right from discrimination to sometimes sexual harassment and having systemic barriers in the workplace that actually affect your work or even affect the opportunities that come your way. Because naturally, women are not expected to lead past a certain point. Sometimes it might be more difficult for a woman to get to maybe the C-suite or the boardroom because people just think that why should we have a woman on the board? Or why should we have a woman CEO? Or why should we have a woman CFO? And so we need a very good support system that helps us along the way, especially when the going gets tough. When people don't believe in us, you need other people to hold you up and tell you that you can do it and you are meant for this. And that's why we have to get a support system. But even more importantly, we have to also support other women. Day in, day out, we're getting new people coming into our workplaces who are women who might be so confused and who might not be used to even the corporate workspace. As women, we have to hold each other up and pull each other along the way. I've had so many people support me in my journey. One of my mentors and I'll call her my most significant mentor, is a woman. And she's the kind of person that after every mentorship session, we have deliverables. And whether it involves her calling someone to open a door for me, or it involves her inviting me somewhere so that I can have a speaking engagement, is something that she actively does. In the workplace too, my side of giving back, I've noticed that sometimes something that might come very easily to you, but you might not even think that it's a big deal. When you render that support to another woman, it might mean the world to her. I've had cases where just giving someone a pep talk about the steps to take in their career, or just even finishing their professional exams, or getting chartered makes a very big difference, because all of a sudden the person becomes more interested because they know that they can do it. and then all of a sudden the person puts in more work to get it done. So as women, we have to support each other, and we have to also be able to receiving support from others, because there's this notion that women are their own enemies. I don't know how we've made that the norm, but then sometimes women don't even open up to each other about their struggles because they feel like they can't trust each other, or they feel like the other woman might see their weakness and hold it against them. But then if we see each other as not competition, but we see each other as getting better when we work together, then we are going to offer each other support, and we are going to also be open to receiving support from each other. And that's going to go a long way to help us increase our numbers in leadership and increase our numbers in the boardrooms and in the C-suite. Celebrate your achievements. Most of the times we keep looking for the next thing. So we never pause to just enjoy the things that we've already done and just celebrate ourselves for the work that we've put in so far. If you look at your career or your life and you just look a year back, you know that you've made so much progress. But are you really stopping to acknowledge that progress? Are you stopping to celebrate yourself and celebrate the little wins that you are making? What about the big wins? Some of us are always ready to move on to the next thing. So we never pause to even celebrate the big wins. We get awards, we get recognitions, we get promotions, we get salary raises, and we just dismiss it as if it's just one of those things and we move on to the next thing. But that's not how we should live life. We should always pause to acknowledge what has already been done, look at what we've achieved so far, and celebrate it, because every single progress that you make, every single step that you make is a step towards the right direction in your leadership journey. So whether it's as big as getting a new job, or whether it's as small as even getting acknowledged by your line manager for something that you did really well, you have to just acknowledge that you are worth it and you put in the work to get there, and celebrate yourself. Recognize your strengths, weaknesses, and values. The most essential steps to leadership is knowing who you are as a person. This comes through a journey of self-discovery, where you take your time to really assess yourself and know what you're good at. And your strengths can even come in ways that might be disguised as weaknesses. Growing up, I was always told I talk too much. So every time my report cards always came with Sheila talks too much, Sheila talks too much. And at a point, it used to worry me. I felt like my only talent was talking. And while other people had talents that were like maybe sewing or crocheting, which was a very big deal back in the day, mine was just talking. And I felt like talking was not really a talent. Another thing that was really good at was reading. I loved reading, and I could just read like 1,000-page book in just a day. And for me, it felt like a bother, because every time I kept bothering my parents for more books, and they kept saying, "Why have you read all the books in the house?" So I never quite felt like I had a proper talent. I remember I used to write that I don't have any talent because all I'm good at is reading and talking. But then these are the very things that have become the stepping stones for my leadership journey, because talking makes it very easy for me to meet clients, makes it very easy for me to talk with my partners who are insurance companies, to even to lead within my team. It's a lot of talking, there's a lot of communication. And I found out that I actually spend about 80% of my day sometimes just talking, whether it's interacting with clients or interacting with partners or even within the wider insurance industry. And so this is something that at first I used to see as a weakness, but then once I harnessed it in a more positive way. So at first it was about talking, just talking in general, and not leaving room for anyone else to talk. But once I harnessed it and became more focused in what I talk about and what I speak about, it became more of a strength than a weakness. The other thing was reading. At first, I could just read anything. So any novel at all, I would read. But then I've now channeled that into a more positive thing where I read things that are relevant for my industry. So whether it's doing research for an insurance, whether it's reading about emerging trends, or sometimes even whether it's just reading about a thought leadership article or something about leadership or something about even general trends, news articles, it helped me to transform that thing that seemed to look like a weakness into a strength. As people who want to lead, the most essential thing that we have to do is to know ourselves. When you know yourself, you even know your leadership style, you know what your strengths are. For instance, when it comes to your leadership styles, you know whether you are someone who is very laid back or very hands-on. Once you know about yourself, then you get to discover how your team also is and the best way to also lead them. So by now, we know that leadership is not meant for a particular gender or a particular type of person or a particular personality. Anyone can be a leader once they develop the right mindset and the right skills to be a leader. At WLIAfrica, we are all about building the future of insurance through developing female leaders in insurance. You can also be a leader. It doesn't take much, but then sometimes you need a community of like-minded people to help you on your leadership journey. Join WLIAfrica as we help to build female leaders in the insurance industry. We are all about helping women in the insurance industry for their careers and get into leadership roles in the C-suite and in the boardroom. Join WLIAfrica today.